While there is only one perfect Quran, which has been preserved to the letter, to the sound, to the dot, to the word, I am holding 37 different Arabic Qurans in my possession. And early Muslims from 2nd century of Hijrah, from 700s to 800s, they were choosing, how many Quran should be there? Remember, Muhammad received Quran in 7 different ways. Muslims don't even know what is that 7 means. Muslims don't even know what is that ahruf means. But around 300 years after the death of Muhammad, individuals decides which Quran should we pick, which Quran should we follow. As they make their decisions, I want to remind you all, Muhammad was long and long dead while they were making their decision. Let's hear from Professor Yasin Dutton. He explains how those Qurans, different Arabic Qurans, were chosen. Please listen the word carefully. The word convenient. Convenient with the big gaps. Let's listen him together.
There's at least 7 standard readings, 7 readings of Ibn Mujahid. Now Ibn Mujahid, you've got there the sort of rough time period he was in. So that's the beginning of the 4th century of the Hijrah, so died 324. So we can assume that most of his, if you like, active scholarly life would have been in the early 300s. And he wrote this book, As-Sab'a fil Qira'at. Now, As-Sab'a means 7 people he's talking about. So when he says 7, the 7 people, fil Qira'at, with regards to readings. So if we translate fi as with regard to. So 7 people with regard to readings. He chose 7 readings. So there are 7 readings that Ibn Mujahid chose, and you can see that they're actually from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places in the Muslim world. So there's Medina, Mecca, Basra, Damascus, and Kufa. So when people talk about the 7 readings, these are the 7 people that they're talking about. And they put, or Ibn Mujahid put Nafi' first, who's the reader of Medina, same time incidentally as Imam Malik, died 197. That seems wrong to me actually. No, Warsh died 197, Nafi' died 169. So that's wrong, that's an error. And from Nafi' there are 2 main riwayas, 2 main rawis, Nafi', Warsh and Qalun. Now Warsh is the reading that's used in North Africa in particular and West Africa, so Nigeria, traditionally anyways, things are changing quite rapidly, but traditionally West Africa, Senegal, Nigeria, etc., Mauritania, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, not Libya, those areas would have recited using the reading of Imam Warsh. And alongside Warsh, you could say Warsh's brother is Qalun. Now both of these, of course, learnt from Imam Nafi' directly. Qalun is alive and well, or was alive and well, in Libya in particular, and parts of Tunisia, obviously neighbours to Libya, and also in Mauritania, because in Mauritania they would learn Warsh and Qalun first, and then go on to other things. So they'd learn them both, because they're both from Nafi', and just in order to respect Imam Nafi', they would do that. Now there's other people who recited from Imam Nafi' as well, but they haven't come down as strong riwayas. Ismail, for example, from Nafi'. So there's others. You'll go to the books about Imam Nafi' and you'll find that many people studied under him, many people learnt the Quran from him and transmitted the Quran onto others from him. So that's just, 2 is just a convenient systematization. In fact, the whole thing becomes convenient systematizations. Islamic knowledge, Islamic history, Islamic sciences, they get systematized for convenience and for accessibility and for simpleness of use. So this is a simplification. We're talking about 7. We'll see there's options of many more than 7. So Nafi' is alive and well in the reading of Warsh and Qalun, which are both used nowadays. Ibn Kathir, I don't think you'll find Ibn Kathir. You'll be lucky if you hear it. The specialists know these things, of course. Abu Amr, yes. Ad-Duri from Abu Amr, you get that traditionally in the Sudan, Somalia, East Africa, that area. Ad-Duri was, and to a certain extent still is, well used. Ibn Amir is the Damascus reading. Asim, Hamza, and Al-Kisa'i, all three from Kufa. And from Asim, there's Hafs and Shu'bah. Now, Hafs is the standard one that most people are familiar with nowadays. So when you talk about which readings you use, people say, don't know. Well, probably Hafs from Asim, because that's the standard one that's printed nowadays. But Hafs, again, isn't the only one, just like Warsh isn't the only one from Asim. And there's the other man is Shu'bah. He's also known as Abu Bakr because he's Abu Bakr Shu'bah. So you'll find that there are these two main readings from Asim, and Hafs is by far the dominant one nowadays. Hamza and Kisai. Hamza is actually quite well known. On the internet, you can go onto various websites and check out Qira'at, and they will talk about the Qira'at of Hamza. So that is, it's still, you could say it's alive and well amongst the specialist Qurra. All of these are alive amongst the specialist Qurra. But Hamza is actually is used fairly, as I say, fairly frequently. Go on the internet, you'll find it. Ibn Mujahid, as we said, was living, let's call him the year 300, about that time. Now that is already a big gap. So that's 300 years after the Hijrah. So a lot of things have been happening. So this is, as I said, this is a systematization. This is a sort of neatening up of things, a convenient limiting of possibilities. 7 readings is just one possibility. If we extend that out, we find that there are 10 well-known readings. You can find books. Al-Qira'at al-Ashr, there's a famous book by Ibn al-Jazari on the 10 readings. And when they say the 10 readings, they mean the 7 that we've just spoken of, plus these other 3. Abu Ja'far is one of the readers of Medina. So we've talked about Nafi', and we've said that he died around 169 as opposed to whatever the other figure was. I'm sure that's wrong. So he's about 35 years earlier. So he's from an earlier generation. If we take 30 years as being a standard generation. So Abu Ja'far is the reader of Medina of the time before Imam Nafi'. Abu Ja'far was the Qari of Medina in his time. He was by far the biggest one. There's others, there's 4 or 5 big names. Abu Ja'far was the main one. But it's not the same as Nafi'. So they're both from Medina, but it's not the same. So you might say, well, what is the reading of Medina, etc.? Well, that's in a sense part of the picture. Just to go through quickly, Yaqub al-Hadrami, he was the imam in the mosque in Basra, the big mosque, Jami' al-Akbar or whatever they termed it. And so his reading is one of the 3 making up the 10, but assuming that he read using his reading, that was the standard reading in Basra at the time when he was the imam of the mosque. One just assumes that that makes sense. So I'll just put that in because the 3 get sort of almost neglected. Anything beyond the 7, overlooked. I won't say neglected, but just overlooked, not thought about. But this man was the imam in Basra. And Basra, as we've seen, is one of the key centers of Islamic learning, basically. So we've got Kufa and Basra in Iraq, and then we've got Damascus, and we've got Mecca and Medina in the Hijaz. So we talk about Hijazi, we're talking about Medina and Mecca. And if we're talking about Iraqi, we're talking about Basra and Kufa. And Damascus is by itself. But some people don't just talk about 10 readings. You'll find books of the 14. And so there's 4 others. And again, we've got their geographical locations here. Mecca, 2 from Basra, Kufa. So you can add them up and you'll find that we started off with 3 in Kufa and add another one in these extra 3 and add another one. So there's 5 from Kufa. And then we've got our first Basra, Abu Amr, we've got Yaqub al-Hadrami, so that makes 2. These 2, Hassan al-Basri, Yahya al-Yazidi, another 2, so that's 4. So there's 4 from Basra, 5 from Kufa, 4 from Basra. That's Iraq, right? Iraq was the center of all this learning at this period. 1 other from Mecca, Ibn Muhaysin, alongside Ibn Kathir we had in the 7. And we've got Abu Ja'far, Imam Abu Ja'far, alongside Nafi' to represent Medina. So there's 2 from Medina, 2 from Mecca, 1 from Damascus. Don't ask me why, that's an interesting one. So that's 5, and then the others from Iraq. So those are the readings that most people talk about nowadays. That's what you'll find in the books. Either 7 readings, Ibn Mujahid being the famous book. The 10, there's An-Nashr fil Qira'at al-Ashr. So Kitab al-Nashr, that's Ibn al-Jazari. But we have these 4 who make up the 14, so you'll find some books of 14. They generally consider these shadh. Shadh is another technical term that we need to be familiar with. It means irregular, non-normative, in some sort of way, a little bit slightly less usual than the other ones. So you have the usual ones and then the slightly less usual ones. But in their day, they would have been used as well and they would have been normal. As we've said, like for example, Yaqub al-Hadrami, his reading was obviously totally normal. Basra, one of the big centers, and if you went into the mosque, it would probably be his recitation. Al-A'mash said, because he's from Kufa, he said, there was a time with us where the reading of, now I should go to my text because I'm going to forget this. He's comparing the reading, what he calls the reading of Zayd and the reading of Ibn Mas'ud. And he says, there was a time with us where the reading of Zayd now, the reading of Zayd with us is like Ibn Mas'ud was with you, or something like that. In other words, Ibn Mas'ud was the standard reading in Kufa in his early years. And then it got overtaken by the reading of Zayd. So that's something about the readings in terms of the people, in terms of the places, and possibly you could also say in terms of their dates. So the 2nd century, died in the 2nd century, and therefore were active in the 2nd century, maybe from the beginning, maybe from the middle, maybe from the end, and a few into the 3rd century.
So we heard nice teaching from Professor Yasin Dutton. Did you give attention? Did you give attention to the names, places, and dates? If you gave little bit attention to the name, places, and the dates, I'm sure you already picked up. Muhammad never gave okay to those Qurans. There were lots of Arabic Qurans were circulating around. Man called Ibn Mujahid, who never met Muhammad, who Allah never gave him revelation. Angel Gabriel never came and squeezed him, but he find authority to pick seven different Qurans. And then time went on, another individual comes and then picks 10 different Qurans. And then time goes on, another individual comes and picks 14 different Arabic Qurans. But none of them are being seen. Actually, those Qurans are being picked up among many, and none of those Qurans are being seen or stamped by the Prophet of Islam, or God of Islam, or Angel of Islam. Why those Qurans are being picked up? Because it was convenient. It was convenient. Systemified for convenience and for accessibility, with a big time gap. Why Muslims are following the Qurans they are following today? It has nothing to do with Allah and Muhammad or Gabriel, but they are doing this because it was just convenient to someone who had nothing to do with Muhammad.